Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to another Sims 4 speedbuilding video, or welcome to the channel if you are new here. So in today's video I'm going to be building in the Magic Realm, which is a hidden world that we got from the game pack The Sims 4 Realm of Magic, and I'm going to be building a brand new Magic HQ or Magic Headquarters, which are also made into a school for spellcasters. So whenever you open up a brand new save file and you travel to the Magic Realm, you're normally greeted with this building which really isn't cute, if we're being honest with you. It just looks like a face. There is this building that is originally placed here which kind of comes with the game, and I just don't like the building whatsoever. For me, in my own personal gameplay, I always felt like coming to the Magic Realm, it was a better idea than the actual practice of actually coming here, because the idea of going to this magical world was so amazing and I can do all these different things, and there's this massive headquarters for magic, and you come here and there's next to nothing. And the idea is just better, so then you end up leaving after 5 minutes. And so I really wanted to sit down and build a brand new Magic Realm, kind of like Magic Headquarters for my save file, because this building will be in my save. Now, I wanted it to be part like a Magic Headquarters for your Sims to come and, you know, do some spells, maybe do some dueling, maybe learn some potions. But then I also wanted you to have the option for, if you wanted to, you could actually play out Harry Potter and actually get your Sims to live here full time. Now with the Sims 4 Realm of Magic, we have different sages for the different types of magic that there is in the game. And in total there is 3 different sages. There is one for mischief, one for untamed, and one for practical. But if you ever actually looked in the spell book for The Sims 4, you'll notice that there's 4 different categories, and the 4th category is for potion making. And so I decided to make it so there is a doom for each type of magic. So there's one for mischief, a doom for untamed, a doom for practical, and there is also a doom for Sims that just want to come here and maybe come to school to learn all about potion making and they're not really interested in anything else. So the way that I design the rooms is there is 2 dorm rooms and then they're separated by a common room in the middle. Now I was kind of thinking back to Harry Potter films. You know how you have all the different houses like Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, Slytherin, Hufflepuff. I'm personally a Hufflepuff, if anyone ever wondered. I doubt you ever did, but I'm personally a Hufflepuff. But you know how they have their own little separate common rooms? I wanted to do a similar thing, but I didn't want there to be a common room for each different type of magic, because otherwise it would be 4 rooms which are basically the exact same thing. You know, like a seating area with a chest table, with a bookcase. It all gets a little bit boring and all a little bit repetitive. So the way I decided to design it was there is 2 common rooms and then they're separated by the bedrooms. So mischief magic and untamed magic actually share a common room, because I feel like they're quite similar in what they do. With mischief, just a bit naughty, whereas untamed, I don't really ever seem to play with, but in my mind, untamed Sims always seem to set things on fire. I don't know if that's actually the case or not, but that's what I always imagine. But then we also have practical magic, which shares a common room with the potion making Sims, which are actually called alchemy or alchemist. I'm really bad with pronunciations. If you've been around for a little while, you'll know this, but pronunciations is not my finer quality. And so I really struggle when I'm pronouncing them. So I'm going to refer to it as potion making. But practical magic and potion making share a common room as well, because I feel like they're magic that you would use in your everyday life. Whenever my Sims are spellcasters, the one spell that I use consistently is the Repario spell. You know, like if your toilet's broken, don't worry about repairing it, or don't worry about buying a new one. Literally, you just click on your Sim, they do a little wand wave, and then your toilet's fixed because they can just repair it. Practical magic is really useful in The Sims 4, but practical and potions then share a dorm room as well, and the dorm rooms are on at different sides of the building, so that you can kind of see the way that I've done the building, like the shape of it. It's 2 buildings and they can't go from one to the other on the ground floor because there is an archway separating them in between them, but you can actually go from like one side to the other side if you go upstairs and then down. I wanted to do that because I wanted to separate the different activities that your Sims can actually do within this building, because where it is such a big build, if I was to do something and I would have, say, like a potion room next to the kitchen, which is then next to, I don't know, the dining hall, which is then next to the gardening room, it's all a little bit like all over the place and you don't know where you are. Even though this build is really big, I feel like it's really easy to navigate, and I wanted that to be something that was really good for gameplay as well, because ultimately I'm also building this not only for my save file and for everyone else to download and play in, but also for myself to download and play in, and I wanted to be able to easily navigate myself around the build and not have to, you know, like try and search for things. I wanted it to be easy gameplay and everything is just at your fingertips. And so I decided to section the buildings, so there's one side which is kind of like for the school part, which is where your Sims can go into the potion room, and I imagine there is potion classes with the potion teacher and they can all learn all these different potions. And then on the the other side, the hall, there is a massive classroom. Again, I imagine your Sims going there and maybe learn some new spells or new things that they can do related to magic. And then on the other side of the building, it's where the dining hall is, the kitchen is, one of the kind of like lounge common room kind of spaces. I believe also there's a computer room or like a music room down there as well. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's something like that. I just basically wanted it to be so your needs and all your things that your Sims actually need to survive are on one side of the building, and then everything else that is kind of like fun, if you want to put it that way, is on the other side. It's just easier to kind of figure out where it is such a big build. I didn't want it to be a bit of a headache trying to figure out, right, where's the toilet? My Sim needs to go for a wee kind of thing. Well, I mean, I say that, but that was probably a really bad example because there is many toilets all in and around this build. So don't worry, there is plenty of toilets for your Sims to use. I think there is 4 downstairs by like the potion and the like classroom area, and then there is 1 on the side where the kitchen, the dining room space is, and then all the rest of them are upstairs. Either way, your Sims, if they need a wee, they're sorted. But there is other things in this build as well, which I haven't mentioned yet, I don't think, like a gardening room where I imagine the potion teacher grows all of their herbs and all the ingredients for all the different potions. That's quite close to the potion room because I feel like when they're in the middle of a lesson, you're not going to want to walk through the whole of the build to go to the gardening room, which is on the other side, because it might be a bit of a long distance. And so I tried to locate that quite close to the potion room. There is also a library, there is computer rooms, there is skill building rooms, there is, like I've mentioned, a kitchen, a dining hall. There is a lot for your Sims to do, basically, put it that way, in this build, and I had a lot of fun building it. It took me a really long time. So I actually had 17 hours of recorded footage of this build, which is a lot. And I've managed to cut it down to currently 39 minutes, which I think is pretty good going. From 17 hours down to, I mean, obviously the 17 hours is not sped up, but trying to cut down a 17-hour build into 40 minutes, I think is actually really good going, and I'm actually really proud of myself. Now with that, I did decide to cut out a little bit of the interior stuff as well as some of the back garden landscaping for this build, because this is 40 minutes with the stuff that I cut out. If I didn't cut out some of the stuff that I decided to, it would have been at least an hour-long video, if not like an hour and 20-minute video. It would have been an extremely long one, and I think actually, I might be wrong, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is actually my longest video that I've ever released of actually pure footage as well, because this is 40 minutes or 39 minutes of just pure me talking here, and then I've got to add the screenshots, which I reckon is going to be a couple of minutes for the screenshots because it's quite a big build, as you can see, and so there's going to be a lot of pictures, and I just know that the screenshots are going to be so beautiful. When I came in and I was playtesting this build, all the different potions had all these different things coming off them, and it just looked all magical, and that reminds me to mention that, again, as always, I have playtested this build and everything works fine. I don't think I ran into a single problem when I was playtesting this, which is actually really nice. And it's especially nice when it's such a big build like this. When you're playtesting like a small like 30 by 20 lot and you might run into a problem, it's a little bit like, oh okay, there's what, 1 problem, 2 problems. But when you do a build this big on this scale, and you're just scared sometimes you're going to run into some problems with playtesting, but luckily I didn't run into a single one, and if you do decide to download this build off the gallery, then you won't have any problems. But anyway, moving on from that and actually talking about what I'm doing right now. So as you can see, I've done the majority of the landscaping. The landscaping is something that I cut out for the back garden because I felt like with the front garden, it was the exact same in the back. It was just, you know, the same plants in different ways that I've shaped them around, and maybe I did the terrain paint a different shape and whatnot, but ultimately it's basically the exact same as the front garden, and so I decided to cut out the back garden landscaping. But one thing that I really wanted to include into this build was this kind of like cherry blossom archway. I found it in the live edit menu and I loved it so much, and I found it a little while ago, but the thing is, you can't put that in like a normal suburban family home. I feel like that's quite a magical object, and so what better place to put it than a magic HQ in the magic realm. And so I was really happy and just really excited that I actually got to use that item. I believe the cherry blossom archway is from the live edit menu from Cats and Dogs, which I wouldn't suspect that would be from Cats and Dogs, but I believe it's actually from Cats and Dogs if you're curious and you want to place it down in your own personal game. Oh, and also the other archways that I've used in the build, in case you're wondering about them as well. So the one that's at the front of the build, there's kind of the stone one. That is actually a railway track or like a train line thing. We got it from the live edit menu again, and it's from Discover University. And then at the front, I've done this kind of like a grand porch, and I've used an archway which is from Get Famous. Just in case you're wondering where all the different archways are from, but 2 of them are from the live edit menus. That is, well, the live edit menu, that is the one which is at the front, and then the one which is like the cherry blossom one, and then the one that I've used on kind of like the porch area, that is from the normal build and buy, and it's just from Get Famous. But anyway, moving on from that, as you can see, I've now finally moved on into the inside of this build, and I've started off by doing the grand entrance hallway area. Now, I want to tell you now, there is a lot of candles in this build, so you can see that on the side of where the doors are, I've actually placed down these statues which are from vampires, and then I've placed some like plants around them, and then there's a lot of candles on the floor. That seemed to be a theme that I did throughout the whole entire build in a lot of different spaces and a lot of different corners. I love it though, because it just makes it feel a little bit more magical and a little bit more special. And yeah, I really like this hallway. I feel like it's very grand and it's very suiting for like a wizardry school or like a school of magic or a magical HQ. But now moving on, I've started off by furnishing the school part of this building. So this side of the building is all where I imagine all the students are going to be spending, you know, Monday to Friday, 9 AM to 5 AM, even though that's a work schedule, not a school schedule. But this is where I imagine that all of the students, if you do decide to play through it that way, would be spending a lot of their time. And I've started off by furnishing the potion room. This room took me so long, and I had 48 minutes of footage for just this one room alone, because it took me such a long time to find all the small little details that I wanted to put into it. I wanted it to be like a masterclass for all different potions and all different ingredients and all different things magical that you can basically have in The Sims 4 into this room. And so I put this fireplace into kind of like this little bump. I don't want to say bump out. Is that a bump out or is it a bump in? I don't know, but you can see where I put the fireplace. Now, I ended up actually putting that fireplace in every single one of the bump outs in this whole entire building. It kind of became a theme, as well as the candles, like I just said. I seem to put the fireplace and then all the candles around, and then it kind of has a little bit of symmetry between the rooms, even though some of the rooms can look completely different from one another. Now, in here, I wanted there to be at least 3 cauldrons for your Sims to come in and make some mac and cheese, if they want to make mac and cheese, because your Sims can actually cook normal food at these cauldrons, but also to experiment and do some potions and, you know, just have a little play about with learning all the different potions that we have in The Sims 4. Now, I did just skip through me actually going through the debug and live edit menu, but I just basically went through and just grabbed every single potion, every single magical looking thing that I could find. I grabbed spell books, I grabbed a few vampire tombs, I grabbed, you know, different wands, and just basically everything that I found in the debug menu that I thought looked even the slightest bit magical. I was like, right, it's going into this room because it needs it, because I wanted it to be a really cluttered space. Now, even though alchemy doesn't have its own separate stage like some of the other houses do for magic, like Practical has its stage, we have Untamed that's got their stage, you know, they've all got their own stages. Even though potion making and alchemy doesn't have its own stage, I imagine that the sage that would be the sage, hopefully that makes sense and hopefully you follow along with me, but I imagine them to be a really cluttered just sim that loves going around and collecting things, probably is a bit of a goofball. That is the kind of sim that I imagine, and so I wanted this room to kind of reflect them and kind of be an image of what their personality is. And so I wanted it just to be a little bit all over the place. I wanted there to be lots of plants in the corner. As you can see, I've got one corner that's just filled with plants. The other corner, I actually used some live edit, they're like slats. We got them from Eco Lifestyle, and I actually moved one on top of the other to make it look like a little side table. But this side table is just cluttered up with loads of different sculptures and plants and spell books and potions and just basically everything that would make sense to be in this room. And I love the way that this room turned out. I did actually have to cut out some of the things of like decorating this room, like the counters which are below them shelves. I had to completely cut out, otherwise this footage for this just one singular room would have just been a little bit too long. And so hopefully you guys don't mind, but you're actually going to see it just as I go around and actually place down all the candles into like around the cauldron, into all of these little like nooks and crannies of the build. And I just love this room so much. I especially love all the plants in the corner, and I just think it's so beautifully lit up as well. And like I said, it just looks really magical. And yeah, I absolutely love this room. This is not the only room, by the way, that actually has cauldron in. There is another 2 cauldrons in the kitchen because, I mean, your Sims can make mac and cheese, and so I thought when they're making the dinner for all the students at this school, instead of making a singular pot that serves 8 mac and cheese, why not do it in a cauldron? And it serves something like 24 or something like that off memory. I haven't made mac and cheese in a cauldron in a while, but it serves quite a big portion size. But over here, I decided to make this little section of the room into the sage's office. Now, like I said, this sage doesn't exist, but I wanted them to have their own little kind of like space where they can go on their computer and research everything that they want to research. Maybe they want to teach a new spell, or maybe they're doing some presentations or something and they just needed their own little personal space. It's basically what I decided to make this room into. Also, I wanted to point out that this is the only room that I've used these curtains, which are from the Paranormal Stuff pack, in this whole entire build. You know how I said that I imagine this sim is a little bit of a goofball? I wanted to really show it as much as I could, and so all the rest of the curtains are the ones from Vintage Glamour Stuff, which are a little bit more formal. But in this room, like I said, the sim's a bit of a goofball, probably a little bit of a comedian, probably a bit of a class clown when they were in school. Maybe actually, maybe all the sages went to this school once upon a time and now they've aged up and actually become sages. I mean, you can honestly play it in any way, shape or form. I'm actually really excited to binge watch all the Harry Potter films, and then I can basically play through Harry Potter in this build. I'm very excited for that. But anyway, as you can see, I'm just finishing up this room now, and now I've moved on into the next room, which is the classroom. Now, I imagine this sage not to be to a particular one that's actually already in the game, but I imagine it to be for quite a cranky sim. I imagine it to be someone like, you know, Professor Snape in Harry Potter. I don't know why, but I was imagining this kind of sim to be the teacher that also like teaches all of these different things in this room. Now, I haven't watched Harry Potter in a while, but off memory, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Snape is the professor for all of the potions. Again, I might be completely wrong there. But even though this isn't a potion room, this is that's the idea and the image of a sim that I had when I was building this room. Now, their office is just in the corner, it's not separated. Where the building was so hickledy-pickledy is the only way that I can describe it. None of the rooms are exactly the same as the other ones, so they all kind of have their own individual shapes, but I like it. It kind of gives the build a little bit of character. And also, actually, I placed down this kind of like crime map, which is from Get to Work. It works so perfectly as like a whiteboard or a chalkboard, but I mean, in the magic realm it just happens to be a corkboard, but I just thought it was so perfect, and I can just imagine a sim just standing up there writing things down on the board or pinning all these different potions and all these different spells down onto the board, and I just absolutely love it. But as you can see, I've just laid down a load of different tables and chairs. Now, the chairs are from Cats and Dogs. I use them quite a lot in this build. And then the table is from Get Together. Now, I'm not sure exactly what packs that I've used and what packs that I didn't use in this build, but I imagine that I used quite a fair few. But I feel like the main packs that you'd probably need if you wanted to download this build would probably be Get Together, Cats and Dogs, of course, Realm of Magic, Vampires, and then Discover University. I feel like they're like the main packs that I used. And then I use some bits and bobs from other packs like Spooky Day and Paranormal Stuff and whatnot. But I feel like for the main like structure and the main bulk of the build, they're probably the packs that I would recommend having. Or, I mean, to be honest, you could probably download this build and change it in any way, shape or form. If you wanted to, you could download this build and you could place it into, I don't know, Newcrest or Willow Creek, and you could, if you wanted to, make it into a family home. But I just thought I'd mention that. But as always, all the build details will be in the description box down below, alongside with how much money that this build costs, because I don't know, but I know that it's probably going to be a lot of money, because you see them knight statues that I've placed into the corner. I placed them all over the build, and I believe they're around about 8,000 simoleons per knight statue. There's at least 10, 15 in this build alone, so I mean, it's safe to say that it's probably going to be a few 100,000 simoleons, I'm imagining. But yeah, anyway, moving on from that, as you can see, I'm just going around the inside of this room, just finishing it off, adding in some cracks into the walls and different like little tiny small little details. And then also I added in these kind of like lantern things, which we got from the Paranormal Stuff pack, and kind of used them as the candle thing. Now, I think I said that I use the candles in every single like fireplace area, every single one apart from this one, so ignore what I just said. I believe now I use them candles in every single area. I felt like it probably just didn't fit in well with that room, and so that's probably why I decided not to put them in. But now, as you can see, I've now moved on into kind of like the gardening room. So I felt like it was really necessary for this build to have somewhere where your Sims could have just some access to planters. Now, I really wanted there to be a greenhouse in this build, and I tried so many different methods, so many different structures, and I just couldn't figure it out. And I could have done it, but it just didn't fit in. It didn't feel like the whole build just went together, because I had this kind of like grand castle looking thing, and then on the end there was a greenhouse. It just didn't make any sense, and so I decided to make kind of like green room, gardening room, but do it in a tower. So it hasn't got a glass roof, but there is still some planters that your Sims can come in here and, you know, grow different mandrakes and all the different things that you need for potions. I said mandrake because that's the one thing that I can remember, or the one ingredient that we've got from Realm of Magic. Can't remember the other one. I think there's like something root, or I can't even remember off the top of memory, but in here I decided to go for the outdoor retreat planters, and then in between the planters I just put a bunch of different plants, and then these little like leaf things which are from seasons. I use the ones which are meant to be for Christmas because they're like holly looking, and then I also use ones which are meant to be for autumn or fall, and they're like fall colours, and it made it just look like it was a little bit of overgrown stuff, a little bit of leaves that have fallen off previous plants that have now like gone, and I just absolutely love it. I do also place some ivy into this room as well, just because I felt like it was a greenhouse. I feel like the potion sage probably let it get a little bit out of hand, because I imagine that the potion sage kind of has authority of this room as they're into potions, and you know, it's their ingredients room if you want to put it that way. But I feel like it got a little bit out of hand, and now it's a little bit overgrown, and yeah, I just absolutely love that room. But anyway, moving from that, as you can see, I've now moved on into the next room, which is the kitchen. This room is so big, and it's probably the biggest kitchen that I've ever furnished ever. It's just absolutely colossal. You can see of a weird shape it is. There's a lot of bump outs, there's a few diagonal walls. It's just a really strange shape, and it was really difficult to know how to furnish it and where to put counters and where not to put counters. So I originally was really stuck on what to do with the fridge. Now, originally when you walk through the archways, you're kind of greeted with a small little kitchen, and there's some cabinets and counters. Then there is also a breakfast bar, and it's got the stove top on. But then if you actually move around kind of like the diagonal wall, that's where the fridges are. I really wish that we could do like a pantry kind of cupboard thing in the game. I really wish for like decorational clutter, like cereal boxes and all the things that you'd normally find in a pantry in the game, because then we can actually create pantries, because I would love for this kitchen to have one. But I kind of did it so the fridges are on the other side of the room, and then in the middle of the room there is 2 cauldrons. Now I don't necessarily imagine there to be one sage that is kind of like the chef for this whole entire place. I imagine that is kind of like, if you want to eat here, you come into the kitchen and you cook yourself. I don't imagine that there's going to be people waiting around cooking your breakfast, lunch and dinner. I feel like if you were to live here, you'd have to come downstairs into the kitchen and make yourself something to eat. And so that's why I decided not to clutter it up so much, because I didn't want it to be like a commercial kitchen like you would find in a restaurant or a hotel. I wanted it just to be a space where your Sims could come and, you know, have a microwave meal, maybe grab a cup of coffee, and then maybe make a massive load of mac and cheese in the cauldron. I feel like there's more recipes than the mac and cheese in the cauldron, but I might be wrong. But either way, as you can see, something I did over here in the corner. So I actually found that some of these, I think they're bags of potatoes, which are from the Cottage Living live edit or debug menu, one of the two. And I kind of place them underneath where this like plant is, and it just looks like it's food that is maybe ready to go, ready to be made. There is also a little planter which looks like it's got like onions or something growing in it. And then also I actually merged in a Cottage Living bucket, and then a bucket which we got from the country kitchen kit, and it looks like there's potatoes in the country kitchen, not the country, the Cottage Living bucket. That was a mouthful, and hopefully you're following along with me. But basically, long story short, there is a bucket that we got from the country kitchen kit, and it's got all different kind of like potatoes in it, or pumpkins, whatever swatch that you choose. But the actual bucket itself has got a lot of floral prints on. If you want to use that but you don't want to use it with that floral print, you can actually merge it in with the Cottage Living debug bucket. That was what I was trying to say. But anyway, buckets aside, I've now moved on into the dining hall. So when I was thinking of the dining hall, I was thinking a lot about Harry Potter, but with Harry Potter is quite a lot of long benches, quite a long room, and then at the end of it is kind of where like the headmasters would sit and all the teachers would sit. But this room wasn't long enough for that. So instead of doing one long table, I did one big square table. So I actually used 3 long tables, which are from base game, and then used a load of different chairs, which are from Discover University, and I placed them at dead centre in the middle of the room. And then I still wanted there to be kind of like that level of authority with the dining placement for the sages. So then I actually created a platform on one of kind of like the little diagonal bits, raised it up, put some stairs there, and I placed down a table which I believe is from base game again, and then used some chairs which again are from Discover University, but they look like a little bit more special chairs than the ones that I've used down below in like the main dining area. Hopefully follow along with me. I can just imagine all 3 sages of an evening just sitting up on that little platform area and eating their dinner, and then they've got all their students on the table. I feel like get together would be so useful in this build, because you could create a club and then get the club to do all the same actions together. So you could get all the club to sit down and eat together, or maybe go into the spell making room, or a spell making room, this potion making room, or go and learn some spells together and whatnot. I'm not sure if there's any club activities for spellcasters. I feel like there probably isn't, but if there isn't, that was definitely a missed opportunity. Hopefully they can update that if there isn't, because I feel like there isn't, because I don't think I've seen that many before when I've been playing the game myself. But either way, as you can see, I'm currently just going around this fireplace and just using, again, these candles just to kind of clutter it up and make it feel a little bit more magical, a little bit more, you know, like spellcastery. That's not even a word. But now I've actually moved on into kind of like everyone's common room. There was basically this space in between the kitchen and the dining room, and what else to make it instead of like a seating room, seating area kind of thing. And so that's exactly what it became. So I used some base game sofas, coffee table, and then the rug as well. And then this wallpaper is base game. Now I've wanted to use this wallpaper so many different times in so many different builds, and I don't believe I've ever actually managed to actually use it in a build. But I placed it down so many times when I did the wallpaper and flooring, because I always do that off camera because it takes me so long. It's actually embarrassing how long wallpapering and flooring takes me. But it just, I've always wanted to use it and I've never been able to use it, and I thought it kind of fits in with the whole idea and the aesthetic of this build. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to use it, and I actually end up using this wallpaper in all of the common rooms as well. It's such an eyesore that it makes it a nice eyesore. You know, it's kind of, it's not the nicest wallpaper to look at, but it's not that nice that it makes it nice. That makes absolutely no sense, but I really hope that you're following along with me. But anyway, as you can see in this room, I just placed down another one of them vampire statues in the middle of kind of like this little bump out where the window is. I really wanted there to be a fireplace there, but there wouldn't have been a chimney on the exterior, and so I decided just to put a little like fairy statue and then just clutter it up all around with all these different candles. But anyway, now as you can see, I've now finally moved on to the upstairs portion of this build, and I've started off by furnishing the room for the untamed sims, like the dorms for the untamed sims. Now, like I've mentioned, there is 4 dorm rooms in total, and each dorm room has 3 beds in, so it can sleep a total of 12 sims in this build. But if you wanted to, you could obviously just change the rooms to be maybe for the sages, because I didn't actually imagine that the sages lived here. I don't know why, but I just didn't imagine that they would be sleeping here. I feel like it's going to be a school, and then maybe the sages go home at the end of the day and then come back in the morning. But if you wanted to, you could definitely change some of the rooms, maybe like the library into a master bedroom or something. But each of the rooms basically has a different colour scheme. So you don't see all the different colour schemes for all the different rooms, because I only actually show the furnishing for the untamed dorm and then also the potion dorm as well. Just because, if I'm being honest, it's basically the exact same thing, just different colour schemes. And I felt like this room and the potion room for the potion sims are the most like different from one another, and so I didn't want to show you basically the same thing just in a different colour swatch over and over again. And so hopefully you won't mind that I decided to cut out 2 of the dorm rooms, but they'll be in the screenshots if you're curious. Plus, I also feel like where I cut some things out of this build, if you do decide to download it, when you actually download it, you can go and explore it fully, and you kind of get like a little bit more of a magical experience. That sounds really cheesy, doesn't it? But you know, like you get to explore it and you get to see things that you haven't seen in the video, which are kind of like little hidden gems in this build, which I really like. But for this dorm room, I decided to go for the red theme. Now, each of the sages have a little symbol that floats above their head, just to kind of help us identify who's a sage and who's not, because when you go to sages in gameplay, you can get, you know, like spells from them and ask them different things, and they can give you magical training and whatnot. So it's actually really useful that they've got these little symbols above their head, because when you've got so many sims on a lot and you're trying to find one, it can be a bit difficult. But I tried to design all the dorm rooms around the colour schemes of their symbols. So for Untamed, it's red and yellow, so I went for a red themed. With Mischief, it's purple and pink, and I went for kind of like a dusky pink purple themed. I didn't realise until I did this build how little items are actually tagged for the correct colours, because there's so many things I knew were like a pink theme or like a purple theme, but they weren't correctly tagged, so I really hope that that gets fixed soon. But for the practical magic, the symbol is blue and green, and I decided to do it in a blue theme because for the potion one, like the alchemy one, I decided to make it into white and green as it's potions and it's kind of got something to do with gardening, you know, all the gardening is like the potion ingredients. I decided to mix the practical kind of like icon colours into the potion one. Hopefully that makes sense. But anyway, as you can see, I've now moved on into the common room, which separates the untamed magic and the mischief magic. So in here I decided to go for the cottage living. I was about to say country kitchen. That, do you know what, it's so hard sometimes to remember every single name of every single DLC that we have for The Sims 4 because there is so many now, and especially with kits, they seem to be coming out so fast and there's so many different packs now of The Sims 4, so it's a bit confusing sometimes when you're doing a voiceover. So you're gonna have to bear with me whenever I refer to the country kitchen kit and the cottage living expansion pack because it's just a mouthful. But the sofas are from the cottage living expansion pack, and I thought they went really nicely in this common room because they were both a mixture of the mischief magic and the untamed magic, because the mischief is kind of like a dusky pink, whereas untamed is more of like a red theme, and I feel like it was a nice in-between swatch. So I really like this room. It's probably my favourite common room out of the two. But in here, as you can see, I use the sofas and then I actually end up putting another one opposite it just to kind of fill out the room a little bit more. It's such a big room. You can see how big all of these rooms are. It was so difficult to floor plan, which by the way I completely forgot to mention. I did decide to cut out the floor plan mainly because I was having a right mare. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to do it. And the main thing that was the biggest struggle for me with the floor plan was the staircase, because I really wanted to have quite a grand staircase going from like both sides, like leading upstairs. But then when I was trying to do that, there wasn't enough space for your Sims to actually walk freely upstairs. It was like one tile. It made no sense. So I decided to cut out the floor plan. So apologies for that. But as always, there will be an overhead screenshots in the screenshots of the floor plan. So if you want to kind of get a general idea of how I laid it out, then you can see it there. But as you can see, I'm just going around now and finishing up this room. It ends up having a piano in it, a foosball table, a chess table, just loads of different activities for your Sims to do in the common room. I am actually so excited to create all the different kind of clubs for this, because I think I'm actually going to, for my save file, actually create clubs from get together and make them for the different stages and make them so maybe they live here all the time. I think I'm going to have them so they're not actually going to be placed into the world and they're not actually going to be living in a lot, but they're going to be spellcasters, so they're going to be visiting here, they're going to be in like their clubs and they're going to have all the different activities that their clubs like, and I'm just really excited, and I'm also really excited for my Harry Potter marathon. But anyway, as you can see, I've now moved on into the next room, which is the library. Now, there was enough bookcases in this house. I thought, why not add another one? It's a grand castle. I feel like where it's such a grand building, it'll be a little bit silly not to have a library, and so I decided to make this space into a library. Originally, I was thinking about making it into kind of like an office for all the different stages, but then it made no sense because the office downstairs in the potion room and the office downstairs in the classroom are separate, and then it would have made absolutely no sense to have another set of offices upstairs. So I decided to make it into a library. If you want to, if you decide to download this build, you can obviously change it to be into maybe some more bedrooms, maybe into a bedroom for one of the stages. Honestly, you can do whatever you want once you download this build if you do decide to. But now moving on, I've now started furnishing the next set of dorm rooms, which is the dorm rooms for the Sims that are really into potion making. I believe they're called alchemists. I could be wrong though. The only alchemist I know is a cocktail bar in London, so I don't really know too much about potion making, but I believe if you have like a group of people and they're into potion making, they're called alchemists. I don't know, but it's what I'm going to go with. So in this room, as you can see, it's actually the smallest room out of all the dorm rooms. I say as you can see, you didn't actually see the other dorm rooms, but I promise you it's the smallest one out of the four. Now I actually did it on purpose because I was thinking where potion making doesn't actually have a sage, I feel like maybe they wasn't recognised as a type of magic for a really long time. I feel like mischief, untamed and practical, they've got generations and generations of different knowledge and just all of this power behind them, and they never really considered potion making and alchemy to be an actual type of magic that can stand on its own and, you know, doesn't have to be supported by any other type of magic. So I feel like in recent years, maybe they actually renovated this room into being like a separate dorm room for Sims that just want to come and learn about all these different potions. Maybe it was like an old library, or maybe it was like a head teacher's office, or honestly, it could have been a number of different things, but I decided to now make it into a dorm room for all your Sims that like potions. So in here, this bedroom is kind of going off a white and green theme. White from the furniture, and then the greenery just kind of comes through with all the different plants. There is so many different plants in this room. I probably use the majority of the plants that we actually have in the build and buy menu. Within this build, it's somewhere I use hanging plants, I use ivy, I use just all different sorts of things, but I feel like it was necessary, especially in this room, as these Sims are really into potion making, and a huge part of potion making is getting ingredients that are growing in their garden. I feel like it would make sense to have them, so they have a bunch of different plants and ivy in their room, and I tried to do it so all the beds that I used in the dorm rooms are the similar beds, although I couldn't actually follow it through for every single one, because as you would have seen, for the room for the Untamed Sims, I used this bed in a red swatch, and then for the Mischief Sims, I used it in kind of like a pink swatch. In there, I used it in a white swatch, which I felt like would par nicely with the greenery from all like the plants and whatnot, but unfortunately, the practical swatch, I just didn't like it, and I didn't want to force myself just to use the swatch of the bed in the blue swatch, just because it kind of, I used that bed. So I used one from Realm of Magic, but again, you'll see all the other rooms that I haven't shown in this video in the screenshots, and also if you want to decide to download this build as well, you can kind of discover some rooms that I haven't even talked about and I haven't even mentioned. But now, as you can see, I've now moved on into the next room, which is basically like a computer room. I say it all the time, but computers offer so many different gameplay opportunities for your Sims, whether it's ordering ingredients, whether it's chatting to someone, whether it's researching something. It was just very necessary to have at least one room dedicated to a computer system. So in fact, there's actually 2 different computer rooms. There is one on this side of the building for the practical magic and then the potion liking Sims, and then there is also a similar kind of room, basically a computer room, basically use the same objects on the other side of the building for the other 2 dorms and their common room. But as you would have seen in there, I decided to go for the Cottage Living typewriter. So it looks like a typewriter, but it is actually a computer that your Sims can interact with like a normal computer. But as it's kind of like an old medieval-y, I don't want to say medieval, but you get my gist, like it's a bit castle-y, a bit medieval, a bit old. I wanted to use it because I felt like it really fitted into this build. But now, as you can see, I've just gone back to the exterior of the build, and I've just gone around and added a bunch of different lighting into the flower beds. Now, I didn't even mention it when I was building this, but this isn't the lighting normally whenever you come to the Magic Realm. The majority of the time, the world is quite dark. It's still beautiful, it's still quite pretty, but the majority of the time it's quite dark and you actually can't see what you're doing. So I did actually have to cheat the game to make it so it is a bit sunny, and then when it was sunny I was able then to go into build mode, and then that way I was able to build it, and that's how I was able to build it and actually see what I'm doing. Because if I would have built it in the permanent like night time, I would basically have been building with my eyes closed, because I wouldn't have known what anything looked like and the swatches looked like. But I wanted to make sure that in the daytime, say if you wanted to place this in another world, it still made sense and all the colour swatches went together nicely and whatnot. By the way, I haven't even mentioned how you place this lot into your game. If you're wondering, the way that you actually place this lot down into your game is you go to the Magic Realm and you visit it with like a normal Sim. The only way that you can actually get to this world is if you actually have a Sim with you. Then once you're in the world, press Shift Control C, open up the little bar thing that you type motherload into normally, then type in testing cheats on. Once you've entered that, then type in bb.enable free build. Press enter, and then the build and buy icon should not be greyed out anymore, and you can click on it, and then you come and you can place down this lot, you can build whatever you want. But I thought I would mention that because it's probably a good idea just in case you want to put this into your game and you have no idea how to. I'll also remember to put it in the description box down below if you want to refer back to this video at a later date when you want to maybe put it into your game. But anyway, as you can see, I'm just going around the exterior of the build now and just finishing it off, adding in loads of different ivy. Originally, I knew that I wanted to have ivy on the exterior of the building, but if I'm being honest with you, I was so excited to get in and start furnishing and just start cluttering up the potion rooms and the classrooms, and I just got a bit ahead of myself, so I thought, oh, I'll come back to it at the end. This is me coming back to it at the end. But anyway, guys, I'm actually going to end this voiceover here, so as always, you can download this build via the gallery. My origin ID is JessicapieYT, or you can just search for the hashtag JessicapieYT or just the hashtag Jessicapie. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, if you do like my content, then please do subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in my next Sims 4 speed building video. Bye guys.